Welcome back to Studio King Street in the heart of Stirling. I'm your host, Neil Munday, and we have the Stirling Business Podcast here today. And our guest, fantastic guest from Stirling Council, Alan Connery, Service Manager for Economic Growth, been with the council for just under a year now. We've got to know each other pretty well over that time, and I'm really delighted, Alan, that you've spent the time to come and talk to us about your organisation, what you do within the council in the economic development team. So with that in mind, would you like to make an introduction for the listeners?
Yeah, thanks very much, Neil. Great to be here. Thanks for having us as well. So I'm Alan Connery. I'm the Service Manager for Economic Development at Stirling Council. So like you said, I've been with Stirling Council a year. I've got nearly 20 years in economic development at international, national and local levels. So I've worked across, this is my third local authority now in Scotland. I've worked with Scottish Enterprise, Scottish Development International. Previously I've worked private sector as well, even going right far back as a paperboy at 12 years old. So quite a varied career in that sense.
Paperboy economic development, how does that fit together?
Yeah. I mean, you get different insights, but it's maybe things have moved on with that sort of job nowadays, but I still see them doing it, and it's gets you out working. That's early days, and brings that work ethic, which I've carried with me my whole career. So you pick up different things no matter what job you're doing.
Brilliant. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the remit of your team within the council. What's the structure, the scope of what you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So fundamentally, economic development is all about helping businesses start, helping businesses grow. It's a very varied line of work. It takes you into anything from creating that culture of entrepreneurship, so working with schools, for example, to help embed more business support or entrepreneurship as a sort of topic area throughout the curriculum, helping young people believe that it's a viable career option if that's what they want to do. Can take you into all aspects like housing and public transport, which is more relevant for rural areas in Stirling, for example. So there's some great businesses in our rural areas in Stirling where they've got great growth potential, but are constrained because they don't have there's not enough housing, for example, or the range of transport options to help get people to work and to live and work in the area, for example. So it can take you in all sorts of different ways. The team itself covers all sorts of. We leverage external funding from Scottish, UK governments and other sources as well, which helps accelerate, in some cases, capital investment in commercial property. So we have a large-scale new film studio, which will be one of the biggest film studio campuses in the whole of Scotland when it's developed next year. There's other ways in which the team help the city centre development, for example, and also we market and sell Stirling in a polite way, of obviously, to attract new businesses to the area that would be
inward investment.
I'm not one for jargon, but yes, the inward investment, if you want to call it that, bringing investment into the area is the plain English. Because that's where we'll add some value to the economy. We're not trying to bring in companies that are competing directly with companies in the area. It's where there's a value add in specific sectoral areas, for example, life science or health, digital health and wellness, for example, or tourism. So there's lots of different ways. You get a very broad view of the economy, meet loads of different businesses, and it's an exciting area to work in.
Yeah, no, it sounds it. I mean, it's probably the most exciting area within the council, I would have thought, at the moment, and particularly in Stirling, because so much going on. Not only was it, voted the, one of the best places to live in Scotland with Right Move, but you've got other things like the Love Local awards and also the Ernst & Young reports in it's one of, 3 top investable cities in the UK. How long do you think this has been going on? This phenomenon in terms of the hype that's kind of building up around Stirling now.
Yeah, I mean, I've lived in Stirling 24 years, so I've sort of lived and breathed it. I've never worked in the area, so this is where it's different, and that's what appealed to me when this opportunity came up, that I finally get a chance to live and contribute and work in the same area. So I came up for university. I'm actually Scottish by background, but you wouldn't pick that up from the accent. But I've got lots of family connections locally as well. So I think as an area, it's probably really undersold itself a lot. it's a great place to live and work. Obviously, I'm biased, but it really is. I mean, it comes through in all the surveys which we see, which are independent. You know, we don't pay for any of these sorts of feedback we get on whether it's a fast-growing area or not. The interesting thing I see with some of the particularly around the statistics is around the demographics and how that's changing. Stirling's a net grower in its population, which is quite different from a lot of areas in the UK, where you're seeing areas sort of decline and the age profile increasing. So we're actually in a good space in Stirling, where you've got a sort of generally a younger working age population increasing, and more interest in people moving and living.
And a pretty thriving university and colleges to feed from.
Absolutely, yeah. That ecosystem is really important, where the college, the university, there's loads of different types of business support providers, such as Stirling Enterprise Park, STEP, the Chamber, Federation of Small Businesses, CodeBase, and the bid itself as well. So there's a really vibrant and varied range of support partners here to help companies, and it's a great opportunity, I think, to leverage a lot of that network to really expand and support companies going forward.
So what do you think the introduction of the film studio and some of the other industries, what do you think that's going to do in terms of kind of jobs and fueling economic growth from a labour perspective going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the success of Stirling has got to be around the diversity in employers and various industries. So it's got a very varied mix. So a lot of people probably wouldn't associate manufacturing, for example, in Stirling. That actually comes through a lot in statistics. It's probably the nature of manufacturing, whether it's food and drink or life sciences, for example, where people may not associate Stirling as a manufacturing area, but it does have quite a heritage in manufacturing. It's not the sort of heavy metal bashing type stuff. We don't really do that really broadly in the UK anymore.
Yeah, it's more discrete manufacturing.
It's more advanced manufacturing, higher end. So there's a real opportunity to sort of leverage that. Construction is another sector. There's some big companies based locally that are expert in house building, for example. So there's a few industries that are sort of commonly wouldn't be associated with Stirling, which I'm keen to do more to promote that within Stirling. Obviously, as well as the core mainstays which people would typically associate as tourism or hospitality and these sorts of industries. So I think the diversity is pretty critical. I think years ago, obviously some of the bigger employers in the private sector, at least, like Prudential was a big local employer. From experience, I've seen that be quite a big risk for areas. When I used to work in North Lanarkshire, for example, I wasn't there when Ravenscraig had the major steelworks, but that caused absolute devastation for still 30, 40 years after that collapsed, 10,000 job losses, and it can be catastrophic for an area. So there's a strength in diversity, really, and that's the sort of ethos that you see in Stirling's economic strategy going forwards.
Yeah, and I suppose with the location of Stirling in the context of Scotland, it's so central, so easily accessible, fantastic, transport routes in and out of Stirling as a hub. Do you see Stirling attracting people coming in from Edinburgh and Glasgow going forward in terms of establishing their kind of careers and building their profiles? Yeah,
I mean, I'd certainly want us to be in that space. I don't think we're quite there yet. It's perhaps more a better place to live than work, but that's partly my job to correct that, help get more companies, different types of employment opportunities in the area. I think it speaks for itself, the quality of life here. Transport connections are interesting because the sort of rail connection's fantastic to two major cities, and we've got obviously the Lumo services starting next year, which will give Stirling 4 direct services a day to London. So connectivity in that sense is good. It's more of an issue when you get out with the city boundaries, and how we really ensure that the benefits of that connectivity
can be extended across Stirlingshire as opposed to just the city centre.
So that's a longer term issue for us. I think that's, again, these are sort of multi-decade long issues that we're dealing with. Go back to the 60s with the Beeching Review, which imagine we had a rail connection from Stirling to Callander and beyond today, it would be a massive draw for tourism, and it's a beautiful route. We don't have that, and I don't envisage that. I'm not a transport expert, but I don't envisage that coming back. There's various issues around the former trail, the original rail line now, but that's not to say we can think a bit more creative about how we've resolved
use transport in a different way. They electrify it. Electrification of vehicles and things like that.
And we can think differently about how transport solutions can work in the future. So, there's lots of potential in that sort of space too.
Okay, good. So you talked a little bit earlier about Enterprise Park and STEP and the Chambers bid. How do you typically interact as a council with some of these other entities within the geography?
Yep. So we meet actually. We've got a sort of business support partners, a group that meets every quarter. It's intention to meet every quarter. So that just keeps everyone up to speed with where each organisation is at, the sort of projects they're leading on, and where they're going. So we're aligning that support in the back end so that we don't overlap. It might. Each organisation has its sort of USPs where it can help. So it ensures that coordination's critical in the background, and that's where we can bring new ideas to that forum about different intel or insights that other organisations are hearing, and again, whether it's for myself or others to help address that, we can all work collectively to do that. So
it acts as a coordination hub, this committee, if you like, to kind of field the requests coming in from different. Absolutely,
and the Chamber's involved
sources
as well, and University College. So we're all speaking to each other. Anyone that has that sort of focus about supporting businesses. There's obviously a connection within myself as well. There's a lot of business-facing services in the council, whether that's licensing or trading standards or planning or whoever it is, and there's a job there to ensure that coordination happens as well, so that it can, we can be as business friendly as possible.
Great. Okay. So the community coming together is obviously a big deal within Stirling, right? We're seeing this firsthand with our business here on King Street. We hear the term referenced a lot, community wealth building. Okay, from the council's perspective, in the context of community, but it's probably a lot broader than that. What would you say the definition in your mind is of community wealth building, and how does that apply to Stirling?
Yep. So community wealth building is fundamentally a new economic development concept or theory. So without getting too academic on it, it's really a new way of restructuring the economy. is a different way of looking at it. If you took it to an extreme level, so there's a sort of principle within community wealth building as the theory that the current economic model that we operate both globally really and in the UK is quite an extractive model, that companies typically have top-down ownership that extract wealth from an area typically. Whereas community wealth building is in trying to encourage more collective ownership. So there's 5 pillars, if you like, for community wealth building. One is around plural ownership, which sounds a bit, it's not very clear what that is, but really plural ownership is about how employees have a stake in the business. So you look at the typical ways that people would set up a business would be a limited company vehicle, a partnership, for example, sole trader would be the main ones. There's also cooperative models, there's employee ownership models, there's trust type models as well, and they're far less common. They're not well understood. The business support networks that we spoke about don't typically promote them in that sort of way. Certain sectors lend themselves better than others to these sorts of models, but for the listeners to bring it to life a bit, I mean, co-op is an obvious example of a cooperative. That is an actual business model by name, but others still can be called cooperatives. It's not trademarked in that way. John Lewis, another one, is employee-owned business. And there are lots of examples locally. And the logic is that we typically see from the research that's been done on these models that when employees have a share in the business, they share in the profits, obviously, much like any directors of the business do. They have a voice in the organisation. So they get to vote, have a say in the direction of travel strategically, where the business goes, and topical issues that they might want to address. So that's quite a critical one. Another one's just on fair work. It sort of relates to that. So a bit about whether it's trade unions may not appear initially relevant for a small business, but it's about that employee voice. Do employees have a chance to inform the direction of the business? Is generally where that's coming from. There's a piece around the sort of really social use of land, so that we've seen different community use legislation come through. For example, that if land's held privately, there was the first test of this legislation came in St Andrews, actually, where a private owner had a sort of small garden plot area right in the centre of St Andrews. It had been vacant for 10 years or more. Pretty unproductive, and it's not really helping the local area grow or do
Prime
anything.
real estate, but not.
Yes, and the local community had been very keen to do something with it as a development trust, so they used that legislation, the first test of that, where they were forced by law, the owners, to sell it to the community, so to turn it into productive use. And then there's a procurement angle as a key part of community wealth building. As well, which is a bit about what you've discussed before about the working flexi spaces, business wealth building or community wealth building model, how you connect suppliers and you bring businesses to sell to each other and use that network. And in principle, it's the exact same. It's more from large public organisations like the university, the college, the NHS, Forth Valley, council, and the cumulative value of that spend will be in the sort of high hundreds of millions, if not £1 billion locally. So if we're able to channel a high percentage as possible into local businesses to supply services, goods and services to us, then you can see the redistributive effect of that. And the logic behind it, theoretically, is that, and it's been proven in different studies, that if local authorities or others spend money with companies, it tends to recirculate 6 to 8 times in the local economy, whereas if it tends to go to large global multinationals, it tends to circulate once or twice, and then it leaves the UK. So we lose the benefit of that money recirculating. So there's quite a lot of ways, without getting too technical, what community wealth building means. It's quite a structural change, as you can probably gather from the sort of nature of the topics that it covers. But I think there's a good opportunity to make some really high impact stuff. There's some amazing development trusts and companies already doing this, to be honest, in Stirling anyway. Some listeners will no doubt be saying, well, this isn't new at all, and that's great, and we want to hear and see more of those. Not saying it's right for everyone, but at least if we're educating businesses about the potential of that. Sometimes we've seen privately held companies, owners perhaps want to go retire, for example, or sell the company and hadn't known or understood that these options exist. So there's an education piece there for us to just ensure businesses are informed about what different models exist and how that can be facilitated as well, because it can be quite complicated, but there's public support there for that. So
the film studio, which is on the doorstep from where we're sat right now, probably be here in 6-8 months from now. How do you think an institution like that will have an impact on Stirling and the community wealth building conversation that we've just had?
Yeah, that's a double-edged question. So, the studio itself, so we're effectively creating a fairly new sector in Stirling. So there'll be a new industry of the screen sector. There's a lot of strong creative companies in the area already, so there's an opportunity. We're not sure the scale of the opportunity for local companies yet, because the studio is still being developed, obviously. There'll be an opportunity for an operator to manage that studio, so the council isn't going to run the studio. For obvious reasons, we don't run film studios. So it'll all become clearer once we're able to work with the operator, see what the supply chains are, and then work with local companies and promote the opportunities as much as we can about how those gaps can be fulfilled. And
I guess the economic impact could be pretty huge for hospitality, for the restaurants, bars, cafes of more and more film crews coming to the area. I mean, obviously Stirlingshire in general and the wider Forth Valley is well known for its filmmaking. There's been a lot of movies and a lot of kind of TV programs and what have you made across the region. This is obviously just going to magnify that and make that a bit more significant. But I guess it will definitely have an impact on all the local businesses in terms of helping them thrive and grow by bringing a different demographic into Stirling. That's not coming here today, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of the broadening the opportunity across the entirety of Stirling is really important, and the location opportunities in Stirling are incredible. So it's key that we actually get to identify those, promote that to location directors to really put as much on the map as possible. there will be opportunities for local communities to benefit from that directly, whether it's financially or in kind, from filming happening in the area. And just getting some structure and clarity around that will be really good. Even in past roles, I've sort of ran a sort of locations filming service in North Lanarkshire. That was Lanarkshire Screen Locations, and there was all sorts of associated benefits where even individual property owners can list their house, for example, for filming purposes. So that's probably at the extreme end of what people might feel comfortable doing. But even if it's filming on a park or public land, or even we've had schools leased in the past and things like that, that's money coming back in for renting the school or things like that. It's really quite vast, the opportunity, to be honest. So very excited, but it's key we keep a bit of realism about what the opportunity is until we're really sure what that is. But the associated benefits for hospitality and tourism generally could be vast. Yeah.
Brilliant. And then there was a recent announcement about the development of the Stirling Park and as an events, concert kind of events venue. That's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so obviously we've had a lot of success. This actually doesn't come under me, to be honest, but I can still speak to it. But City Park will be a phenomenal events venue. The backdrop, second to none. The City Park project is looking to bring a lot of City Deal funding in to make the site more both environmentally friendly to run, a bit more cheaper to run for operators, venue operators really, or promoters. So it brings some of the utility connections on site. So I've been told I oversimplify, but it's plug and play basically the site. So that usually makes it a bit clearer what we're doing. So the works itself are not. You won't see anything happening on the site. We've obviously got to be cognizant of the view that people come to Stirling to see from the castle, so that'll all go through the planning process and things too. So, but as an opportunity, it will dramatically push the dial on
and bringing more footfall into Stirling.
Yeah, and that's fundamentally it. It'll be a huge opportunity to bring major events on a regular basis, and it needn't just be focused on music events. All sorts of different events that could be held in that space. So, there's drainage works and fairly nuts and bolts stuff that listeners will probably get a bit bored of us talking about in detail. But it's a really exciting project, and that's a sort of based on industry feedback that they would come again, but these issues need addressed. So, those sorts of things, both the studio and City Park completing in the next year, will really start to move the dial a bit on putting Stirling on the map, both for events and different industry. Yeah,
great. So what... we're coming to the end of our chat here, Alan. So what would you say the key objectives are for the economic growth team over the next 12 months? Where are you going to be placing your bets?
Well, I don't bet there's public money, Neil. So. But no, I mean, it's important that we get out as much as possible, speak to companies. There'll be some new funding hopefully coming from UK government that will hopefully get a chance to shape some new types of business support, bringing all the partners together to really bring that together. And what I'm keen to see is that companies start feeling a bit of a sea change, just culture feel. And I think some of the stats that are coming through and the stories that we don't pay for any of that, that's just consultants doing their own research, like the Ernst & Young and the fastest growing economy type stuff. That sort of narrative just feeds into the thing that we're doing the right things, and we're starting to lay the groundworks for creating both a short and longer term future, a better future for Stirling's economy, moving the dial a bit on some the sort of culture of enterprise, both in schools and in the environment. If we can put Stirling on the map as more of a start-up location, that would be a real success, leveraging some of the students at both at the college and university, trying to retain people in the area. I'm probably overemphasising this for 12 months, but I think I'm not going to pin ourselves down to any particular numbers, but I think if we're starting to see the framework and the foundations being laid for a really positive future for economic development and the businesses in Stirling, I think that feedback will start coming in spades, hopefully.
Brilliant. Okay, so where can the listeners find out more about what you guys are up to and where the priorities are?
Yep. So
Council.
obviously, you can more than welcome to check out the council website. But any sort of business support, contact your business gateway. Stirling service is probably the best port of call, or your local bid, or CodeBase. Any of the others, the chamber, university, whoever you get to, we're all connected together, and you'll get back to us eventually. So
that's great. Well, thanks, Alan. It's been fantastic talking to you and getting the perspective from the council on where Stirling's going. So thank you very much.
More than welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So we come to the end of another Stirling Business podcast. Thank you again for my guest today, and I look forward to coming back with more enriching content within the next couple of weeks.